Hi, everyone, and welcome to BizBuzz Week 5 meeting, where we were fortunate enough to have the privilege of getting to host and learn from current career coach and former UCLA staff member, Katie Russo. Katie, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yes, of course. We're thrilled to have you, and we look forward to learning more from you tonight about all things LinkedIn and networking. And we also appreciate all of our members who are joining us tonight in attendance, especially during midterms. We hope those are all going well for you guys as we are in the thick of it here in week 5. And I know week 6, probably in 7-2, we'll have a couple more. So without further ado, we will get the ball rolling. So real quick agenda. We're gonna briefly go over announcements, and then Katie is gonna take the reins and take us through her LinkedIn networking workshop. And then toward the end of it, we'll have open audience question and answer with Katie for about 15 or so minutes. Katie will moderate that herself, and considering like Zoom protocol, I guess we're all kind of used to it at this point. Please try and use the raise hand function, or feel free to type your questions into the chat at any time. All right, and then real quick, you guys know our attendance policy. I don't need to read through the whole thing, but there it is. And just remember, it will affect field trip participation as things continue to open up. And then one final thing we're going to advertise, and I know, Katie, you like this as a Lakers fan, so we'll make sure to share this with you if you'd like to come join next week. We're going to have the opportunity to host a Lakers marketing panel featuring a UCLA alum, as well as a former women's soccer student athlete. And now, with all of those administrative details out of the way for the night, let's head into what's most important at this moment, which is our opportunity to learn from an insightful career coach like Katie herself and her well-crafted workshop. So Katie, I now hand it over to you.
All right. Thanks, Colin. And yeah, thank you so much to all of you. Super excited to be here. And thank you to Christina for helping coordinate this, and Nick, and getting this all set up. So I'm excited to join you tonight and talk about LinkedIn and share strategies for success in utilizing the platform and maximizing your experience on there. So let me share my screen. And yeah, that Lakers panel looks awesome. All right. Assuming everyone can see my screen. All right. So just a brief introduction of me so that I can give you all a little context about like who I am and my expertise on this topic. So my professional background has been in higher education, career development, and career coaching. So prior to starting at General Assembly in February this year, I've spent the last few years of my career working in career services. I spent 3.5 years at UCLA. I was in alumni affairs there doing career programs for students and alumni. And then before that, I spent some time at Colorado State University working in their career center. So that's the context I'm coming from. And then once again, because I am someone, especially when I think about preparing you all and talking about networking and how to create like genuine connections and relationships, I'm a firm believer that we all are human beings before you are a student, before you are an employee, a professional. So for me, you can talk to me about NBA college basketball, or I am also, I definitely think I kind of fit in the category of foodie. So I'm always on the search for like the best burger in LA. So that's just a little bit about me. All right, so getting into LinkedIn. So brief overview of LinkedIn. It is the largest professional network. There's over 772 million users in 200 countries and territories worldwide. I think those stats are from Q1 this year. Obviously, many of you know, as you are active users on the platform, that it is the go-to platform for professional networking. It's a top job board, an employer and industry research site, a great way to keep up with industry trends and what different companies are up to. The other thing I want to point out as well with LinkedIn is it's not just another social media site. I know we all have pages and profiles on a number of different social media outlets: Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, whatever it may be. But you do want to be mindful on LinkedIn about first impressions and language choice. I have some stories even from my time at UCLA of, getting a message from an alum after seeing, some comments that a student had on a post. So I promise you, believe it or not, that does happen. And you want to make sure that you are commenting and engaging on the platform in a positive light and making sure you're representing yourself well for people who may stumble across your activity or your comments on something. There are 14 million jobs posted on there roughly, and 1.3 million company pages. So I would love to hear from you all. And once again, for me, like this, I want to make this as interactive and conversational as possible. What do you all use LinkedIn for? So you're welcome to unmute yourself and share with me. If you want to throw your answer in the chat box, that's fine too. I'll try to check that. But I'm curious, what do you all use LinkedIn for? Why do you go on there? So yeah, maybe Nathan and then Colin.
Hi, Katie.
Hi.
I think that one thing I use LinkedIn for a lot is for job searching. Me being, sort of finding a lot of, trying to find like my niche in the workforce. I'm not really sure what I want to do. So I think LinkedIn really helps sort of increase my visibility to potential employers.
Absolutely. Yeah. Fantastic answer, Nathan. Yeah, that's a great way to use the platform. Yeah. Colin, what about you?
Definitely in a similar vein to Nathan. It was able to help me secure an internship for this summer, for which I'm definitely very grateful for. And I'm not sure that opportunity would have arisen if it weren't for having a LinkedIn page.
Okay.
And then one other thing is like, it's nice like getting to connect with like mentors and whatnot. And like also like say like my parents' friends, my friends' parents, and like it's just cool like staying in touch, I guess, like seeing their posts, what they're up to professionally, and just like I guess like having more to talk about and just a lot of cool, interesting things going on. And you just feel more like connected and in touch.
Yeah. Yeah. An easier way to maintain that network. And like you said, see what people have going on and reach out to folks who are doing, cool stuff and things like that. So yeah, that's a great answer.
I use it for sales sometimes, especially in my job, looking for people and specific companies. Historically, I've been able to use that to target specific people to reach out for the job I was working for.
Nice. Okay. Awesome. Thanks, Nick. Anyone else? Yeah, those are all, yeah, fantastic ways to use the platform. So obviously a lot of the things you all talked about are shown here in kind of the purpose of LinkedIn in how you think about not only building your online presence, but how you're interacting and engaging on the platform. So, it really is first your kind of dynamic digital resume to attract recruiters, keep recruiters interested. 96% of recruiters use LinkedIn during the hiring process. And it's also a place for you all, even getting started out, to build credibility. So, write posts on there, engage with content on there, comment on things, join groups, endorse one another for skills, share projects and what you're up to, recommendations from past supervisors or colleagues. And then, like Colin had shared too, right? It's a great place for you to be able to find mentors and industry professionals to network with and learn from, and to continue expanding your network. And to Nathan's point, right? If like you are in that place of still figuring out what you want to do, which let me tell you, as career coach Katie, like 100% okay. Like it is okay to be exploring a bunch of things right now and not have 100%, like you're not 100% sure on what you want to do. So that's a great way of looking on LinkedIn, finding those folks to connect to and learn from like what they're doing and to give you more insight into if that's something you think that you could see yourself doing. And then once again, the other main goal with LinkedIn is to be able to create those connections and establish relationships so that you can increase your chances of getting to the top of that resume pile. So starting to, interact with recruiters and connect with HR professionals on there at companies you want to work for. That way you kind of can start to have that contact and connection or foot in the door when you're applying for that opportunity. Okay. And then I'm curious, so why does a strong LinkedIn profile matter, right? Why is it important why do we have to have one? Why does having a strong LinkedIn matter? What do you think? You can either unmute, share in the chat. Rivaldo, hopefully I pronounced it right.
Yeah, you did. I think most employers want people who will represent their companies in a proper manner, and the way you present yourself online does exactly that, but on an individual level. And yeah, it's just important to put your best version of yourself out there.
Absolutely. Yep. Perfect answer. Anyone else?
feel like for me, it's like a good legitimacy check, because like on a resume, you can have any sort of company listed, but like on LinkedIn, if you put you're working at a company, like some employer can look at your company's page and see what your company is actually all about. And so you just can like learn more and figure out more things. And like I said, just a big legitimacy check.
Yeah, for sure. Yep, absolutely. So if you, Rivaldo, did you have, or maybe that was, it might've been the hand still up from when you answered earlier.
I think Nathan threw something in the chat.
Oh, did Nathan? Okay.
I can read it if you'd like.
Oh yeah. Okay. I just saw it.
Nathan says he thinks that a strong LinkedIn profile lets recruiters see more of your skills and interests, which can then allow you to communicate these skills more effectively.
Yeah, totally, Nathan. Yeah, great point. Absolutely. So yeah, talking about those points and why it is important, right, that you are putting your best foot forward, as Rivaldo said, and making sure that you are creating that positive kind of first impression for those that are finding your page or wanting to kind of take a look at your background. These are just a few statistics from LinkedIn put out a student job hunting handbook. I think now it's probably been out for about 3 or 4 years. So most of these statistics probably haven't changed too much, but I just did want to highlight some of the important ones here, which most of these probably aren't a shock to any of you. 91% of recent grads networked during their job search. 80% of positions are filled through referral. About 75% of hiring managers say they look at LinkedIn profiles to learn about a candidate's background. 50%, this is something I think is pretty noteworthy and something for you all to keep in mind. 50% of those hiring managers will actually decide whether or not to move forward with a candidate's application based on their LinkedIn profile. So once again, really making sure that you have expressed yourself in a positive light and taken time to, make sure your sections are filled out and you feel confident about your profile, so that when they get to your LinkedIn, they say, absolutely, we want to move this candidate forward. 1 of 5 hiring managers say they've hired someone because of their volunteer experience. So definitely don't discount any volunteer service, community involvement, unpaid experience. Like, absolutely make sure that's highlighted as well. 1 of 3 hiring managers say they're interested in seeing hobbies and co-curricular interests. So you all being part of the student organization and all the other things that you're doing on campus, make sure you highlight your involvement and your student leadership experience. 56%, this is another one I want to point out, 56% of those hiring managers say candidates do not describe their job roles with enough depth and detail on LinkedIn. So we'll talk about that a little bit more, but I want to note that one so that I can, I can emphasize to you all, it is important that you don't just, throw a job title and the company tagged on your in your experience section. You want to make sure you write a few sentences about what did you do in that role? How did you gain the skills to help you become a better professional and things like that. Members with photos get 14 times more views on average. Members of the school tagged in their profile get 10 times more views on average. And then LinkedIn members with at least 1 skill get 13 times more views. Okay, and then I have just some a few LinkedIn trivia questions for you all here throughout my presentation. So you're welcome to throw your answers in the chat, your guesses. The first one is, you are how many times, so just a single number here, you are how many times more likely to be viewed if you have a professional photo? What do you think is the number there? 35, says Drew. What else? What are some other guesses? 10, 7, 10. 2013. Okay, good guesses there. So the answer is 14 times. So some of you, I saw some 13 in there. So you're right there. This year, I will also, I meant to say this in the beginning before I started, my apologies. I will share this slide deck with the leadership team after my presentation. So don't worry about taking copious notes or anything like that. I know it's being recorded as well, but in the interest of time, I'm not going to play this quick video so that we can keep moving along. You're welcome to go back and watch this video from LinkedIn. It's just a few quick tips on how to build a powerful profile. So I want to talk about kind of the first 3 things that recruiters notice when they get on your page. So, right, the first is your name, second is your picture, and then third is actually your headline under your name. So most of you probably noticed when you first start your LinkedIn and start filling out your sections in your profile, it will default to whatever your current position or job is. So for many of you, it's probably student at University of California, Los Angeles. If you're working somewhere part-time, if you're interning somewhere, it'll default to whatever your current position or job is. I encourage you all to think about tailoring that. And some of you probably already have done this because once again, UCLA students are always ahead of the curve. I encourage you all to think about tailoring this to something a little more personal and unique in connection to kind of your career direction and your goals. So I put a sample one there, which is UCLA sociology student exploring careers in sports business and technology. And that was one I just put out as a sample, but take a look at, other people's profiles, get ideas for how they've structured their headlines as well. Because if you think about it, if I'm a recruiter and I'm scrolling through a ton of LinkedIn profiles, I'm going to see a million student at UCLA's. And so if you have a more tailored headline, such as this example I have here, your headline is going to stand out amongst all the student at UCLA's. So think about it that way. And then here's just 2 other customized headline examples for you to think about. And once again, take a look at other profiles and get ideas from there and be able to kind of showcase your passions and your career direction in your headline in like a brief little snippet. And then here are just some, I pulled these a while ago. These are just some, I think it's a mix of both UCLA students and some are UCLA alumni or other folks. So just for you to see some samples of how people have chosen to structure their headlines. Okay. And then after those 3 things, right? So your name, your picture, and your headline, the next most important thing on your profile is that about section. It was summary, now it's the about section. And that's really kind of that's a brief snapshot of who you are, what you're about, and then kind of like where you headed. So for those that maybe feel, I know for me, I didn't have like my LinkedIn summary section. I didn't have a LinkedIn until I was in grad school. When someone told me, I just remember they told me like, you need to have a LinkedIn. I was like, okay, I made the profile. And kind of from there, it was like, now what? I didn't know what to do with it. And so the summary section or the about section for me, I didn't have it filled out until I was like finishing grad school and applying to jobs. And I think because for many of us, I don't know if anyone else feels this way, but that felt really intimidating and overwhelming to me. I didn't know how to talk about myself to people who have, never met me in person and complete strangers on the internet. And so I've given you all, some of you probably have some great summary sections already, but for those that maybe want to think about refining it or don't have much there, I've given just some suggestions for kind of a framework for writing that section, which is kind of think of it in like the present, past, future formula. And you can structure it in like a 3 mini paragraphs way. So like first mini paragraph would be like, what are you doing now? So talking about your UCLA experience and what you're doing as a student. What motivates you? What are you interested about? What are you passionate about? Second mini paragraph would be talking about anything you've done with work experience, internships, projects, athletics, student leadership involvement, and what experience and skills do you have? And then the third mini paragraph is really kind of what's next for you. So depending on what year you are in school, are you looking for an internship? Are you getting ready to graduate and you're looking for entry-level role? Are you going to go to graduate school? So talk about what you're looking for, what's next, and maybe even for those that are looking for full-time jobs or internships, like what types of organizations are you interested in working for? So this is really a great area to, highlight important experience, include keywords that are relevant to the industries that you're going into or thinking about. And then it's also a great opportunity for you to showcase your personality. So find a way, and it's not, of course, necessary, but I think even from profiles I've browsed, I've really enjoyed the ones where people share a little bit about kind of like I talked about earlier, like them as a human being or a person or their hobbies or interests and kind of what they do outside of work. So I always think that makes for a richer about section as well. Okay, another trivia for you. You are blank times more likely to be viewed if you have more than 1 position listed. So what number do you think is there? You are how many times more likely to be viewed if you have more than 1 position listed in that experience section? Okay, so we got 20, 16, 16, 14, 17, 15, 12. These are good guesses. And I think someone got it 12 times. Who was it? Gavin got it. All right. Nice job, Gavin. Okay. And then the experience section. So like I was just talking about, you do want to take time to, write out a few sentences in that description section. Make sure whenever possible. I know sometimes you might have, whether it's a startup or maybe it's like for a project and that company or something doesn't have a LinkedIn page where you can tag it. But whenever possible, if the organization you're working for or that you did a project for has a LinkedIn page, make sure that you have typed that in like fully and correctly so that it is tagged in your profile and people can click into the company to kind of learn more about what that organization does. The other thing to keep in mind, and I say that your LinkedIn profile is not your exact resume of bullet statements because the goal here is actually the way that it differentiates from your resume is that description section underneath your jobs. You actually want to write a few sentences. So when you first start out your LinkedIn, it's totally fine to copy and paste your bullet statements from your resume. I did the same. In fact, I still have quite a few on my LinkedIn that I need to update and kind of take out of bullet statement formula. But it's actually, I went to a conference a few years ago and met with someone who worked at LinkedIn and they were doing profile reviews. And he actually told me that the goal here is for you to write a few sentences about what did you do in that role? What did you accomplish? What projects did you work on? What skills did you gain? So think of it almost like a few sentences of like, how are you becoming a better professional as a result of this position? Like, what are those 3 to 4 things that you took away from that experience, and make sure that they are highlighted there. All right. And then, yeah, once again, you want to find ways to like add rich media to your sections, showcase your organization and your work. So wherever you can, add in websites, presentations, PDFs, portfolios, photos, anything like that. It just makes your profile look much richer when someone is quickly scrolling down and doing a scan. Okay. Another trivia for you. Adding your education, which, hello, #1 public university in the country. So like people are definitely going to be looking at your profiles. So adding your education can help you get up to how many times more messages from recruiters? What do you think here? Adding your education, how many times? 16, 6, 10, 15, 13, 11. Okay, these are good guesses. 10. Let's see what it is. 17 times actually. 17 times just from adding your education section, having a school tag there. All right. Okay, so now we're going to get into actually some of the tools on LinkedIn. I'm going to show you a few things in the platform. And first, I'm going to show you how to create your personalized URL if you have not done that yet. So let me just get out of my slide deck and go here. Okay, so when you're on LinkedIn, you go up here to your profile and click view profile. On the top right-hand side, it says edit public profile and URL. You're going to click that. And as you can see, this little edit your custom URL, click the pencil. And I recommend here, like, type in first name, last name, or first initial, like last name, whatever you want. If you're John Smith, I always say like, you're probably gonna have to add a number because John Smith is probably already taken. But type in your name, click save, and LinkedIn will show you like it'll automatically save. And then you have your customized URL, because when you first make your LinkedIn, your URL actually defaults to like, it's like linkedin.com /in/ like a bunch of, numbers and letters gibberish. So add in your name, click save, and then you have that ready to go. And you can add that to your application materials. So up at the top of like your resume with your contact information, you can have phone number, email, LinkedIn URL, and you're ready to go. So that's that. That's the custom URL. The next thing I want to show you that's super awesome is the alumni tool. So the easiest way to get here is to start typing in UCLA, and you want to make sure, something I want to point out here is you want to make sure you click on the school page. As you can see, this company page is coming up at the top. You want to make sure it says school next to it. So here we go. Click on the school page. And then once you're on the school page, I'm sure you're already all following this amazing school that you attend. But here you're going to click on this alumni at the top. And this allows you to see, where are UCLA alumni on LinkedIn? Where are they working? What are they doing? So first of all, there's over 433,000 UCLA alumni on LinkedIn, which is amazing because I can tell you from working at UCLA, there's just over 500,000 UCLA alumni across the globe. So the majority are on LinkedIn, which is pretty amazing. From here, what you can see is you can sort these alumni by where they live. You can sort them by where they work, so their employers. And then the other thing I want to highlight for you all is to click this next button. And now you can sort by industry. So you can sort by like industry or job function. So if you're looking for people in biz dev, if you're looking for people engineers, media and communication, like nonprofit with like community social services, consulting. And then the other thing you can do is if you want to search by like your other alumni who study the same thing you're studying. So if you want to look at like, I want to look at more econ alumni or political science or sociology, you can click into those bars and sort by what they studied at UCLA. So just to show you all an example. So let's say I wanted to look for alumni in the LA area. That's where I'm based. So I'm going to look for alumni there, even though right now, right, you could talk to pretty much anyone wherever they are. And as you can see, when you start to use the filters, you can even click into some of these and see the top employers of where these alumni are working. Obviously, some really shabby names here, Amazon, Google, Netflix, companies that, nobody wants to work for, right? So what you can also do here, if you click that ad, what's really cool is I can type in, like, let's say I wanted to see who was working at Fox Sports. Now I have 49 alumni. And I can go down here and see who are these folks, what are their job titles. So the other thing I recommend for you all is to start scrolling through here and look at the diversity of job titles of what people are doing at companies that you even want to work for, and kind of click into their profiles, see their path. So scroll through. And the other nice thing that's really great about this is you can see that whenever you have a shared connection or a mutual connection, it will show that there. So for example, if I wanted to talk to Kristen, I could go to Steve and say, hey, Steve, is there any way you could connect me or make an intro to Kristen? I'd love to talk to her about, her role at Fox Sports. But scroll through and see who some of these people are. And then once again, if you wanted to, you can click next, and you can even filter it down by like job function of like, if I was looking for people that, worked in finance at Fox Sports or worked in HR or media. So you can filter it down there, and once again, by major and what they studied. I'm just curious, how many of you have seen this alumni tool before? You can either like unmute, or you can like, I don't know about like raising, you can maybe like raise your human hand, not your Zoom hand, but like, how many have seen it before? Okay. But not like for many of you, is this your first time seeing this?
Definitely first time seeing it in this much detail. And like,
okay. That's what I like to hear, Colin. Okay.
This is really cool.
Okay, cool. Yeah. For most of the time when I like have shown this to students, they didn't even know that LinkedIn had this alumni tool where you could go in and actually search for alumni at your school and like start to filter it down by either industry or like, what they studied. So I highly recommend, and this is a great place. I'll talk about informational interviews shortly. It's a great place to find people for those. So that is the alumni tool. Let me go back here. Okay. I won't get into, and then the other thing I'll show you is you want to make sure, if you have not already, you want to join the UCLA alumni group on LinkedIn. So you can just, if you type it in quotes, you'll make sure you got better search results here. So it should be this first one. If you click groups at the top, it'll be this first one. There's over 48,000 people in here. The other thing that's great is if you request to join this group, if you find someone on LinkedIn that you maybe is like a third degree connection and you like have to send an email or whatever, but the nice thing is if you're in a shared group with someone, so if it's another alum that's working somewhere and you want to message them, if you're in the same group, you can go here and you can actually message anyone that you're in the same group as. So it's kind of a LinkedIn hack for you there. So make sure you join the alumni group, and then, follow any companies that you're interested in so that you get their updates on your LinkedIn feed and things like that. The other thing I will show you all really quick is UCLA One is another great place. That is your UCLA exclusive networking platform. It's just ucla1.com. So it's made up of alumni, students, faculty, staff, and community members. I would say it's probably about 70% alumni, 30% students, and kind of those other populations. So it's another great place for you to find alumni to connect to for informational interviews, networking. Just ucla1.com. You can use either like, I think your LinkedIn, Facebook, or one other, I think, like social media platform to like get your profile up and running within like probably 3 minutes of getting onto the platform. So I recommend checking out UCLA One as well for another place to network. Okay, so let me make sure I didn't miss anything. Okay. And then the other thing, and talking about networking and the importance, obviously, right, in utilizing LinkedIn and thinking about things like informational interviews, I did want to highlight some stats from a survey done by JobVite, I think about a year or two ago, which they were talking about like the power of networking referrals when it comes to job searching and applying to jobs. So employee referrals actually have the highest applicant to hire conversion rate. While only 7% of applicants come from referrals, the small number accounts for nearly half of hires, around 40 to 50%. Employees hired through referral are hired 55% faster than those who come through kind of the formal career site. Online job boards are still the most popular for posting job openings at 69%. But most workers also find about job openings through 45% say they find out about them through friends, 42% say social media such as LinkedIn, and 31% say professional connections. So that's just some interesting kind of stats that I wanted to highlight to you all, and data behind job referrals and kind of the importance of making those connections to kind of help you, once again, get that resume or get at least through the first phone screen. So the last part I want to talk about is just informational interviews and the importance of doing those to continue to build your network and make connections, especially while you're still a student, because it's so much easier when you're a student than it is when you are an alum like everyone else and have graduated. I'm curious though, has anyone done an informational interview before, which is basically like a career chat? You're just, I'll talk about those, but anyone done an informational interview with like a professional in a field that you are looking to go into? Colin?
Yeah, I like to do a lot of them, even if it's like, and honestly, I enjoy informational interviews a lot more when it's people who I know I'm seeking nothing other than just knowledge and connections and like advice. And so stuff like that I find really insightful and helpful, and it feels like a good, genuine connection, as opposed to, I just don't ever want to appear transactional, because that's genuinely not where I'm coming from.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Yeah, that's great. Yeah. And that is the nice thing about informational interviews, is being able to make it just a more casual conversation and go into it with kind of just a lens of curiosity to learn from that person and gather new information. And sometimes you'll have informationals that can turn into a more, like in-depth relationship, or maybe you get a mentor out of it. But also there's times where you collect information, send a thank you note, and, add them to your network and continue to kind of learn and make new connections that way. I can definitely tell you all too that quick anecdotes for me is both the last two jobs that I've had, I was hired through from networking and reaching out for informational interviews. Leaving my UCLA job, my General Assembly job, I had an old coworker who used to work with me at UCLA. Then she went to General Assembly. I reached out to her about the opening, and I can tell you I went from a first round interview to a job offer in 11 days. And I've never experienced any process that fast in my life. And I would say it once again is because I was coming in through a referral. And then the other thing too, is I will tell you that these are more powerful than you may believe. And they are such an underutilized tool in terms of not only finding job opportunities and really tapping into that hidden job market. For me, a few years ago, it was actually not that long ago, believe it or not, I was having a quarter life crisis, and I had finished grad school. I had said to myself, oh my gosh, I think I want to go into the sports industry. I wanted to work in community relations and community engagement. Knew nothing about it, had no connections in the sports industry after just finishing a master's degree in higher education. And I went on LinkedIn. I found someone at the Warriors and the Lakers who worked in community relations. I dug and dug and dug on Google for their emails, because I knew I would have a stronger possibility to hear back from them in email versus LinkedIn. I sent them both an email with an informational interview request. I didn't think I'd hear back from either, because who was I, Joe, Susie Schmo off the street. And I actually got responses from both contacts at the Lakers and the Warriors. And then even from the conversation with the gentleman at the Warriors, there was a part-time event role at that time. And he said, hey, if you're interested, send me your resume and I'll pass it along to the hiring manager. And so you just never know who, just sending that message, you never know who's going to respond, and you never know what can come from that. And most of the time, job opportunities will come because you will be top of mind for them, because you've already taken the initiative and you made the connection. And so they'll think of you if an opportunity comes up. So once again, the basics are, it's just that informal conversation. You're getting inside information about the industry, about what it's like to work at their company, learning from them, getting inspiration and advice for someone that's, wanting to maybe head down a similar career path. I've also linked here that you all can use. It's a full informational interview question bank, because I know sometimes it's like, I don't know what questions to ask. I know I felt intimidated. I didn't know what to write in that message to reach out asking for it. And then I also didn't know what questions. So this is linked to a Google Doc with a bunch of questions you all can use. And then once again, when you connect with someone on LinkedIn, you always want to send a custom personalized message. I can't stress this enough. I get a ton of LinkedIn connect requests, as I'm sure you all do at times. And for me, it's really helpful if there's just even a sentence or two in there from someone finding my profile that says like, hey, Katie, I'd love to learn more about your role at GA, or basically for me, like I would love to just have a brief sentence of like, why are you interested in connecting, or how can I help you, right? That's what you want to answer for that person. How can they help you, or what information are you hoping to gain as a result from connecting with them? The other thing I want to highlight too is you do want to be aware of quick connections here. So I know like in the My Network area, it has a section where it's like people you may know. And so if you go in here, and it's totally fine if you all do it with each other, like peers and classmates, I think that's totally fine. But if it's bringing up maybe some professionals or people that are working at companies that you want to maybe create a little more professional relationship, I would recommend you don't want to click this connect here, because if you click the connect, it just sends the request and you don't have any opportunity to send a message. So just wanted to highlight, you want to be aware of the quick connect feature on LinkedIn. They do it to make it like super easy, which is ideal. But if it's those that you want to make sure you send a quick message to, go to their actual profile, click connect, and add the quick message there.
Yeah, Katie, if you don't mind me asking, I assume once you do the quick connect, you can't really go back and
you can't
and send a message. Okay.
That's why I want to highlight that to you all, because I've learned that the hard way myself. Okay. Once you do the connect button, you cannot go back and send a message in on that request. So
very good.
Yeah, absolutely. And then these are just, I won't read these out loud, but once again, in giving you all the tools, I know for me, I laugh because I didn't know anything about informational interviewing when I was in college. I barely even knew about it in grad school. So I laugh now that I teach informational interviewing and networking, but for me, I know I felt really intimidated about like, what do I even include in that message to reach out like to a total stranger? I don't have anything to offer them. I don't have any value, right? Like, so I just included a few kind of sample message templates for you all, either for a connect request on LinkedIn or like asking for an informational interview. So there's just a few here that you can make your own, personalize, make it your own. But these are just some sample message templates. This is another just great resource. The LinkedIn for Students website has some really great kind of tip sheets, and the student job hunting handbook that I referenced has great networking tips and some data in there as well. This is also a few additional resources for LinkedIn through JobScan. So like, how to, write your headline, write your summary, and kind of the LinkedIn optimization tool. So you can check these out as well. Last thing I will plug, because it's still a significant part of my heart and the work I did at UCLA. If you have not checked out the UCLA Alumni Association's official podcast, Bruin Success, I highly recommend checking it out. We interview UCLA alumni in all different industries and fields and talk to them about what they're doing now, how they got to where they are now, their UCLA student experience, and advice they have for other Bruins. So right now, I think there's a new limited series, which is like 10 careers you've never heard of. And that's like a Bruin Success kind of limited series of the podcast. But if you go back and listen to previous interviews, if you haven't listened to it before, you may recognize the voice because I did host the podcast during my time at UCLA, so it will sound familiar to you. But honestly, I can say that one of my highlights of working at UCLA was the interviews I got to do and the alumni I got to meet and talk to. There's just some really great, they have amazing stories. So definitely check it out. To wherever you listen to podcasts, it's available there. And I will stop there because I know I went a little longer because as you can see, I can totally nerd out on LinkedIn for a long time and talk about all the different cool features on it. I will remind myself, we'll start questions, but I'm going to remind myself, I want to show you all one more thing when it comes to the LinkedIn viewing settings, which actually I'll do really quick before we do questions, because it's something that I didn't learn until later on, and it would have been helpful for me. And I want to give you all this tip so that you can think about how you're using the profile viewing options and the privacy. So if you go up here to settings and privacy, and you click, let's see, visibility. So you click this profile viewing options, and this is what I want to highlight. If you click change, it'll show your options here. So on LinkedIn, when you first get on there, it will default to the full details there. Well, it'll show my name and headline. So it's like going to give everyone all of Katie's information, my picture, everything, my headline, location, and all that. You can also do the semi-private, so it'll have no picture, it'll have like just job title and company, or you can go full private mode, which is anonymous LinkedIn member. What I want to highlight to you all is, so for me, I've been in private mode for majority of my time on LinkedIn because due to my work, I look up people all the time for alumni panels, workshops, guest lectures, and if they have a LinkedIn premium account, they get the notification that like, Katie looked at your profile, right? And so, but if I'm an anonymous, they just see anonymous LinkedIn member. So because I look up so many people and try to figure out them for my different workshops and things like that, I choose to stay in anonymous mode. The caveat with that is because I'm in anonymous mode, you won't get to see, if you choose to be anonymous, you don't get to see who looks at your profile. So you won't get those notifications of like, Katie looked at your profile. So just something for you all to think about depending on how you want to use the platform. If you're doing it more for like searching for people and you find that you look at a lot of profiles, you may want to go in the semi-private or private. If you care more about that, it's important to you to see who looks at your profile, then maybe go in the full details or semi-private. But so either way, pick whichever is more important to you. But I want to highlight that because I wish someone had told me that earlier. And that is my last kind of LinkedIn tip there. Yes, Colin, your hand is up.
Yeah, I'm curious. That seems like a cool mode. When you do that,
yeah,
people like say they search Katie Russo LinkedIn on Google, what shows up?
So my LinkedIn will show up, but if you are not connected to me, they will see, there'll be no photo there. It'll just say, I think like it'll have my headline and it will have limited information in my profile. So I think it only shows my current job and my experience section and like my two schools and education. So that's another thing that you can go in and like, you can actually pick how much of your profile you want to be displayed publicly. So if you're not connected to me, you don't see my photo, you just see like my title, my current employer and the experience, and I think my two schools, and like, that's it. So yeah, but it does come up. My LinkedIn does come up like first if you were to Google my name.
Okay, cool. And this might be obvious, but I assume doing that, does that kind of limit your umbrella, I guess, of people being able to seek you in terms of recruiters?
I think it can a little bit. Yeah. So that's where it's like, you want to think about what would be most valuable to you. So for those that are actively maybe job searching or trying to connect with recruiters, you probably want to be in like the middle ground, like the semi-private or full information, because it may be important to you right now to see who's looking at your profile, if it's HR folks or recruiters at certain companies. But if you're maybe starting to network and doing a lot of informational interviews or looking up a lot of people and you end up on Joe Schmo's page or Chico Bottabico's page in Boston, then right, like I don't need Chico Bottabico knowing I looked at his profile, right? So it just depends on what's most important to you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I will stop there. That's just my LinkedIn for you to connect with me. That's the UCLA alumni career engagement page for you all to see everything that my old team is offering to support you all in your career development at UCLA. But I will stop sharing there and take any of your questions. Yes, Drew. And Drew, did I see in the chat earlier, did you say future CEO of LinkedIn? Because that might have been the best compliment I've had all month.
Oh, yeah, I was actually referring to Gavin for guessing.
There you go. Oh,
yeah,
there you go. Yeah,
correctly
okay.
twice.
All right.
But you too, actually.
Gavin and I are going in together. There we go.
Yeah, exactly. But I see a lot of people who have like a constant presence on LinkedIn, and sometimes they're posting like motivational things like every other day.
Okay.
What would you recommend like with regards to like your activity on LinkedIn or like posting things?
Yeah, great question, Drew. Because that's funny you say that. I've noticed an increase in that trend as well. And I think, I don't know how some of you feel, I have mixed feelings on it, from just certain people I see and like what they're choosing to share on like a very regular basis. I think for you all, once a week, or if it is like a post where you're either sharing an article or you're writing a quick LinkedIn like blog post about something, maybe that a relevant topic, or maybe you're highlighting a recent project or something like that, I would say like once a week or once every 2 weeks. Once every 2 weeks is probably a little bit more feasible for you all, because I know sometimes it can be like, I don't really have anything to share. Like I haven't done anything exciting lately. Like we have those moments, I think, in our lives. But I'd say like once every 2 weeks would be a great pace to like be able to share updates or an article or engage with someone's post, so that you do make sure your activity is continued and regular on there, and you're coming up on the newsfeed of people in your network.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. What else? Yeah, Colin.
I had one. What would you say are some of the biggest strengths and weaknesses you see on LinkedIn, like especially for profiles for like undergraduates and graduates in positions like ours?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'll start with weaknesses. So weaknesses in terms of profiles for like undergrads that I've seen a lot of profiles where, I think I was mentioning this earlier in the experience section, where sometimes people will just have like job title, like, let's say intern at like, Target or NFL or whatever, right? Job title, company, nothing, no description. So like, I know nothing about what you did there. There's no, like, you haven't even like put a website link or anything like that. So really making sure that you take some time to write a few sentences in the description section. And then if there's things like I mentioned, whether it's like you worked on a presentation, or there's a slide deck you can reference, or there's a photo of you and your team presenting your final project, like throw that photo in that, in that area where you can add media to that section. So really make sure that when they scroll down for your experience, it looks very filled out, it looks polished, and that you've spent some time and thought into putting in information in that section.
Okay.
The other thing I would say too, and I laugh when I say this now because I didn't have anything in my about section for a long time. So I get why that's sometimes the last thing filled out, but I know for me, if there's nothing in someone's about section, it's a little bit of like someone that I'm like, okay, I don't know if I'll reach out to them, because for me, I go to the about section to get a quick snapshot of like what this person's like background is like. Are there any like shared like topics or things that they're working on that I'm passionate about? So even having a few sentences if you're getting started in the about section is really helpful, especially as like for you all as students, for that recruiter or HR folks to see, what makes you unique? What are you interested in? What are your strengths, and how can you add value to future employers? So making sure you have a few sentences there. And then lastly, like probably just like, a nice, clean picture, nothing fancy, but making sure you have one that's, just nice, clean photo. The other thing I would say too, that's becoming more and more something that people look at is your recommendation section. So wherever you can, if you have a past supervisor or a colleague that you worked on something with at a past, part-time job or internship, asking them to write you a brief recommendation of like, can you talk about what it was like to work with me, or some of my strengths, or how I contributed to the project. I know for me, if I see there's one or two people that have spoken to you and your experience, that person in my mind automatically gets more credibility. So just think about finding ways to gather recommendations from relevant people who can speak to you and your experience.
Absolutely. Thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
And I know Tom had a question.
Hi, thank you so much for speaking today.
You're welcome.
My question is, this is just like, I guess, personal. I don't know how others feel about it, but on LinkedIn, sometimes when I'm scrolling through, it's starting to feel a lot like a Facebook kind of thing. Yeah, it's super casual. Yep. And a lot of like really weird motivational or like really controversial stuff, right? And then you read the comments, it's crazy. Yeah. So, and that like really turns me off from like the website sometimes. So I was wondering, do you have any advice for like kind of dealing with that? Is there a way to like filter it out, or maybe just don't scroll?
That is a great question, Tom. And that brings me back to when Drew was asking that too, because that's where I was saying the mixed feelings, because I can tell you personally as well, Tom, I'm in the same boat as you, that like, I love LinkedIn. I spend a lot of time on there, and it makes me sad lately that it's kind of turned into this platform where that's a lot of what's on my news feed, when that's not how it used to be. So something you can do, and it's, I think, up to you in terms of like who's posting or who's who is it like, because sometimes it's right, it comes up because one of your connections commented on it or liked it, and I'm like, I look at them like, I always laugh. I'm like, someone liked this or commented on this, like, come on. Right. And so, but what you can do is you can actually click on, I think, like the 3 dots on the post, and you can say to LinkedIn, I forget what they're like the option there, but I think it says something like, don't show this or hide this type of post in my feed or something. So I recommend thinking about doing that for those that you're kind of like, oh, like this is annoying. And I keep seeing it from the same person. Like, click on those dots and say, like, I want to see less of this in my feed, or whatever that, whatever their language is there for that option. But I would encourage you to do that so that, you don't see as much of that stuff that, once again, you're like, is this Facebook or LinkedIn? Right. So I'm in the same boat, Tom.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Johnny, go for it.
Thanks. So I had a question about so when I'm submitting resumes to different jobs, like I kind of curate them. I leave off certain things and I put on certain things that I think are more valuable.
Yeah.
Would you recommend taking things off of LinkedIn after a certain point? Should I have where I went to high school on there? Should I have the jobs that I had in high school? Does that matter? Should I keep things on there since it's not going to be on my resume, or what?
Yeah. Good question, Johnny. What year are you in school?
I'm a junior.
Okay. So I would say, I think for you as a junior, I would say if you had a significant job in high school that you worked for over a year and a half, maybe 2 years or more, that you spent a lot of time in working there at high school, I think it's okay to keep that on. I would say if you're a junior, I welcome you. I mean, it's totally up to you. Sometimes I don't really know people that go and see someone went to the same high school and you're like, oh my gosh, I went to the same high school, right? It's usually now it's college. So I would say you can take off your high school in your education section, especially because you have such a strong school already in your education section. So yeah, I would say as a junior, you could take off your high school, but if there is something significant, or if it's something really relevant that you did in high school that connects to the types of jobs you're applying for, then I would say I would encourage you to keep it. But if it was a 6-month thing you did in high school or something like that, you can take it off.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Katie, this might be slightly overthinking it, but I'm just curious, from a recruiter standpoint,
yeah,
do they ever take into consideration who someone is connected with, if that makes sense? Is it more about quality over quantity, or should we just accept every connect invite because it makes our numbers look better? What do you think?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Colin. So I've actually heard a number of stories of people that if you apply to something, right, and they pull up your profile, they're looking at your resume, they pull up your LinkedIn, and they have, let's say they have a mutual connection or a second degree connection. I've heard so many stories of that recruiter or HR person checking in with that connection and saying right. So they'd go to me and be like, hey, how do you know Colin? Oh, well, he's president of this organization. I worked with him so they'll go sometimes to get just the quick anecdote from someone or a testimonial of oh yeah, this is how I know them. Oh yeah, they're great. Or oh, well, we had minimal interaction here. I can't really fully speak to their experience or, their qualifications for whatever role they've applied for. But recruiters do that a lot if there is a shared connection. So, I mean, I think for you all, what I would say is I say you don't need to accept anyone and everyone. You want to be thoughtful. It is for sure at the end of the day, and as time goes on, it is more quality over quantity. But yeah, there will be times where the thing about LinkedIn and the power there is that when you connect with someone, right, you now are then connected to second or third degree to their network, right? So it's all of these then second or third degree connections, you continue to get closer and closer in to potentially a contact that you're oh my gosh, so-and-so at Nike, now you're one connection away. So I would say for you all, unless someone looks sketch or it's, someone that you're I don't know, and I've gotten some that are just in somewhere I'm I don't know how you even found my profile, right? And for me, I'm decline. But I would say accept most because it's going to get you closer to maybe having that oh, you have a mutual connection to now this person that you didn't even, they were totally in third degree before, and you were going to have to send an in-mail or something like that.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that.
Mm-hmm. Drew, go for it.
Yeah. So in the sports industry, there's actually like very few opportunities. There's maybe like, I know like at sports agencies, for example, there's
Right.
maybe like, I don't know, every so like there's few every year.
Yeah.
And would you recommend going the informational interview route where you're messaging people on LinkedIn at these agencies, even if there's no opportunities out there at the given moment? Would you go that route over any other route, or how would you?
Oh, sorry. Sorry, I didn't know.
Or what would you recommend?
Yeah. So, and that's a really great question. I definitely recommend, especially because the sports industry is so competitive and it is so much about like trying to network to get your foot in the door. I absolutely recommend looking at either some of the agencies or teams or whoever you're thinking about, or whether it's, some of the sports media companies, and finding contacts there to do those informationals with, because actually the goal with the informationals is you're not going into it asking for a job, right? And you're definitely not like starting out that conversation like, hey, so are you hiring, right? Like that's not the approach you're going into. You're going into it to learn, to talk about their career path, advice they have for you if you're looking to, enter the industry and be in a similar type role. All those things of like, what did you learn about this industry that you didn't expect that you can share with me? So going into it actually with more of that curiosity and open mind of just learning and gathering and absorbing information, even if there's no job or internship opportunity at the time, is actually a better approach, because then you've built that relationship. And then guess what? In 3 months, when all of a sudden now, oh, we actually are hiring a part-time intern, you get to circle back with Joe Schmo and say, oh my gosh, like Joe, I saw this opportunity. I really loved our conversation. Would love to talk to you more about this role. And if you could pass on my resume to the hiring manager type of thing. So yeah, I absolutely recommend is being strategic and thoughtful about building those relationships actually when you like don't need to fully lean on them yet, because having them established, then you can circle back and reconnect with those folks when the opportunity comes up. And they might even just think of you and send you that email like it happened to me. So I promise you that happens. I will also say too, I know I'll answer Paul's question in a second. I will also share with you all with the slide deck, I'll share some of my sample. I still have my messages that I sent to the contact at the Golden State Warriors and the Lakers. And I swear I had no idea I would get a response, but I spent a lot of time on those. And I included some very specific things about like what I admired about their teams and stuff. So I will share those templates with you all, and you are welcome to go to town with them and send them off and tailor them, make them your own, and reach out to people for those informational interviews.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Paul, go for it. Yeah. Nice to see you again, Paul.
Nice to see you too. I just wanted to ask like I guess this is maybe more personal, but just like personal experience, but what do you think is like an appropriate like amount of time for college students like us to spend on LinkedIn? Because I feel like for some people, or just maybe speaking on my own part, like sometimes it can get overwhelming if I check it too much, and like you're comparing yourself to other people and you're seeing
with all
what
social media, right?
doing.
Yeah.
And it's just a lot of that. So what do you think is like a good way to kind of like balance it so that you're still engaged, but it doesn't overwhelm you and it doesn't almost become detrimental to a sense?
Yeah, totally. I can 100% resonate with that feeling, Paul, of not just LinkedIn, but that's definitely somewhere for me, that and like Instagram, of just this constant, like hard to not compare to what everyone else is showing right in the highlight reel. I think for you all as college students, and something that I've tried to even do, even though like I'm no longer in student mode, but something that I tried to start like working into my schedule was like choosing either end of the week. So like a Friday afternoon when, right, like we've all kind of like checked out. I know for me, it's like work wise, it's like I try not to have meetings on Friday afternoons. I give myself that kind of downtime to work on projects or have focus time. So think about maybe like a Friday afternoon, or maybe it's an hour or two on your Sunday or during your weekend. And what I would try to do is like, for all of my work stuff and like events I was going to, things like that, or a conference, I would try on those Friday afternoons or the weekend hour or two that I set aside for myself. I would go on LinkedIn. I would go back and be like, okay, who did I meet at these events? I would grab back in the day, right? Like when they gave me a business card, I would like go and like look them up on LinkedIn, send the connect request. Hey, so-and-so, so great meeting at this conference. I look forward to keeping in touch, kind of thing. And so I would actually set aside like probably 1 to 2 hours to send those connect requests, add them to my network, because I can tell you, and I'm sure you've all experienced this, right? Where like, you go to something, you meet someone, you forget to add them on LinkedIn, all of a sudden then you're like, oh, they're hiring, but you never like add them on LinkedIn. Then it's like this, like it's been a year and you're like, how do I try to like reach out to them and not make it awkward because we haven't talked in so long? So I started to be more intentional about setting aside that time. And of course, it didn't happen every week because life happens, but wherever I could, setting aside just an hour or two block on a Friday afternoon or an hour on a Sunday, then just like going in and sending those connect requests helped me kind of, then I could check my feed, I could send those. I'm like, all right, great. I got those people in my queue. They're now in my network. And that helped me a lot. So that might be something you can start to like incorporate and see what works for you. But I would say like, an hour or two a week max for you all right now. Like you don't need to be spending too much time on LinkedIn. You guys got a lot going on, but it's also important that you are building those relationships and making sure after you made the connection, adding them on LinkedIn and getting them in your network, because that's how you're going to hear about stuff that they have going on. Or they're like, hey, I need to hire interns. Oh my God, hello, I'm right here. Right.
Definitely. Thanks so much for that.
Yeah, of course. Okay. I don't know if Jada or Colin was first. Sorry. As you guys can see, I'm a talker.
Jada is first.
Okay.
Thanks, Colin. Hi, Katie.
Hi,
Thank you
Jada.
for being here with us today, talking about the importance of LinkedIn and the benefits.
Yeah.
Actually, Paul really did take my question because I'm a grad student, and
Okay.
It's definitely addicting at this time.
Yeah.
About finding jobs and pretty much getting to that transitional phase of getting out of college. But I actually did have an additional question.
Okay.
So earlier you did mention about the importance of having a statement about yourself and also including information about places you worked or places that you intern. I want to ask specifically more about the about me part of the LinkedIn, and what are some of the key things that you see that can differentiate between having a pretty good about me section versus maybe not a great one, and what are some of the key things that you should see when you're including in the about me section?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think for that about section, some of the key things you want to include, and for me, what makes an about section stand out in a good way to me is when someone it's a few sentences about like what you're currently doing. So like, where are you working, or what are you, depending on what you're doing in school, like tell me about what you're doing in school. Like, what are you majoring in? What student organizations are you involved in? Are you a student leader in any roles? Are you a student athlete on a certain team? Like, talk about your student experience. So give me that, and give me what you're involved in. Same for those that are working, right? Like, tell me a little bit about your role, what you do on that team or in your company. And then the other thing I think that I really appreciate about the about sections that stand out to me and make for people that I think I'm more interested in connecting with is when people can incorporate like other interests and hobbies. So obviously, like I talked about earlier, right? Like, you are all human beings. You have full lives and, families and all kinds of stuff going on in your life. So when people are able to talk a little bit about like, what are those things outside of, even for you all students, like you may have the dream job and that's awesome. But like outside of that, if you were to picture your life and you're in that dream job, like what are those things in your life that you love doing, or that allow you to thrive, or that give you meaning and give you fulfillment, right? Like what are those aspects of self-care that help us stay like happy, healthy people and members of society. So I think for me, something that I really appreciated is those about sections where people talk about either what are like causes that you're passionate about contributing to, or if you volunteer somewhere, where do you volunteer? Why do you volunteer? Oh, I volunteer with Ronald McDonald House Charities because blank, right? Like, so think about those aspects of you and who you are and what's important to you, and highlight that. Like, what do you value, right? So for me, something that I want people to know, and you'll see if you go to my LinkedIn, in my about section, is I am deeply, deeply passionate about diversity, equity, inclusion in the workplace. I'm also a first generation college graduate. And so I cared so much about first generation, like student success and how we can support one another. So like, what are those things from your life and your experience that you would want someone to know about you, or that have shaped your experiences and how you see the world? And so include aspects of that in your about section where you can. Hopefully that was helpful.
No, it really was. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Because I definitely need to like tailor it once I
and
graduate, because I won't be able to say student athlete anymore. So I
Okay.
definitely need to figure out how to tailor it once I'm out.
Yeah. And I was going to say, this goes for Jada and the rest of you here. Like if you want to, update your about section or update your experience section or your LinkedIn profile, and you want to shoot me a note and have me like take a look at your LinkedIn and give you feedback, just send me a note, or I'll give Colin, and Nick, they have my email, but you can totally share out my email with the group, and I'm happy to set aside some time. We can hop on Zoom and I can give feedback about your summary section or any of that. So, Jada and the rest, like happy to take a look at that if you want to make updates and you would like just an outside person to give you some feedback there.
Yeah, that would be awesome. And thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, of course.
Offer with us. We really do appreciate it. And looking at the time and all that, we appreciate you giving us this hour. If you don't mind, if I could ask one last question.
Absolutely.
I think applies to everyone. Or actually, Nathan, do you want to ask yours real quick? I just let him go up.
I can take both. It's totally fine. I'm all right.
How about Nathan goes first?
Okay.
Mine should end it, I think.
Okay. Sounds good.
Oh, I guess he misclicked.
Oh, okay. No worries.
No worries. Yeah, so I'll ask mine real quick and then we can wrap it up. So considering in our club, we got a lot of individuals who are enjoying lots of successes as students and up and coming professionals through just landing internships and stuff like that. Like huge shout out to our new director of public relations, Alana Donnelly. She just landed an internship at Hulu for this summer.
Oh, that's awesome.
Big time, doing a role she wants to be doing as well. It's in marketing.
That's
and
awesome.
So when you have cool moments like that, what I'm curious is, kind of long story short, I want your thoughts on the humble brag. So like, how do you find the balance between posting about your accomplishments so that one, not only can you maybe express some of that pride that we all would have, but also kind of like putting yourself on the map with the people who are out there, but also trying to maintain like an aura of humility. Like, how do you do that?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And I think that's something that I still am learning, like how to do that well. And especially for me, I think there's times where like, and probably maybe even for some of you here, right, that imposter syndrome creeps in and you can feel like whether when you get something or you accomplish something like, oh, was I meant to get this? Did I deserve this? And how do you strike that balance? So I think when it comes to, I think for me, what I think about that humble brag is, it's actually really important that we like celebrate those wins, whether small, big, like getting the full internship or even getting that interview, like celebrate that, right? Like that is a big deal. And you should feel proud because guess what? That didn't just happen from like someone waving a magic wand. And so you all worked really hard and you do work really hard to set yourself up for success and to set yourself up for those opportunities to come your way from all the work you've done and everything that you've put into your student experience or what you've been involved in and things like that. So, life is short and you all should take time to celebrate that and highlight those and share that with your network. So I think, when it comes to like sharing that, definitely like on LinkedIn, being able to say, this is a role that, when I first saw the position, I was super excited to apply for as it's something I could see myself, doing in the future after I graduate from UCLA. I'm so excited that I've accepted this offer, and then maybe highlight, like, what about that company excites you? Like, what do you want to learn there? Right. And you can say like, I've worked really hard, or after submitting, 70 resumes, I didn't think I'd be able to get to this place today, but here I am. So like finding those ways to incorporate a little bit of the humility and some of your personality, but also like knowing that once again, like you didn't just get there, it didn't just happen overnight. So highlighting that, like I submitted all these resumes and this finally happened. And like, I'm excited and I look forward to learning and growing and, talking to these professionals at Hulu. So I think that's kind of how I would say, to do it. But I would say that LinkedIn, out of all the places, that is where you all should absolutely celebrate yourself, highlight your victories, big and small, and highlight those wins, because the people that you're connected to, they want to see you do well. They want to see you succeed. And so they're going to comment and they're going to have the celebrate reaction. And they're going to be like, oh my God, that's so great. You got that internship. So excited for you, right? Because your network wants to see you do well. So like, absolutely. Yeah, sure. Like, have pieces of humility, but like absolutely brag because you worked really hard to get that accomplishment and to achieve that. So let the world know life is short.
That's absolutely reaffirming to hear, and we really appreciate it. And I think that brings us full circle, because I think after nights like tonight, more and more people who are a part of this group will experience more and more of those successes thanks to the tips and wisdom you shared. So we really do appreciate it.
Thanks. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. This is fun. As you can see, I could talk all night about LinkedIn stuff. So I'm really glad. Hopefully it was helpful for many of you.
Absolutely. So that is our formal conclusion, guys. Everyone is welcome to leave. I'll be hanging around for a couple minutes if anyone has anything to chat about. But to all our regular members and Katie, thank you so much. And we wish you all the best.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I was just going to say too, I will send, Colin, I'll send you and Nick a follow-up email with the slide deck, and then just like my email contact information. And if anyone wants to reach out, and feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm sure I will be getting, there'll be personalized notes and all those connect requests. But yeah, like I said, if you want to make updates and you're like, hey, Katie, can you just look at my about section? Just send me a note. Happy to do so.
Yeah. The advice was incredibly valuable and also practical, which is not always something you find. So
I'm so glad. I try to make it, I try to give some of those things, because it's all these things that I wish someone, I didn't know anything about that. And I didn't know how to do anything to my profile that I, have it that looks this way now. So I try to deliver that same information and tips of things you can even do like tonight or tomorrow.